Hello! So today we're back with cheap houses again, and this one is one of those bargains that I just had to tell you all about. So it's in County Sligo and it's for sale at the moment for 27,500 in a little place called Carrogary. So where's Sligo? Well, if you're not familiar with the layout of the country, it's in the northwest and it's by the sea. They're the two main things that you need to know. I know a lot of you love coastal counties. Your dream of living in Ireland or even living in rural Ireland if you're from the towns is to live near the seaside. And County Sligo is one of those places that has great beaches, great surf, great quality of life, and it's affordable, which is exactly what we like to hear. Yay. So let's have a look at the house. Here it is in all its glory again. First of all, let's go for the pluses that you get with it. It has water already, which is brilliant. It has ESB on site, which is brilliant. And it's sitting on a half an acre, which is a nice size of a garden. I mean, you're not going to be raising a big rick of animals in it. You're not going to need a tractor, but it's definitely enough space for you to have a really decent sized garden and maybe have some chickens and stuff like that, which is great when you're living in the countryside. So with water, it's not a given if you have water on the property that you have a fitted kitchen, that you have bathrooms, that you even have water inside the house. The most important thing when I see water on a listing is that it means there's water there. Now, getting a well sunk in rural Ireland is one of the more expensive things that you have to do. You can't put one everywhere. You need testing and stuff done to make sure the water's good enough quality. So having water already there, whether it's from a private well or a mains feed from the local village or the local scheme, is a really, really big bonus. Just don't take it for granted that that means you have a kitchen and you have a bathroom, because they are totally different things. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is the ESB. In the same vein, if you have ESB in a house, which is, for anyone outside of Ireland, electricity. We call it ESB because that's the company that would have ran it for years. We would have got our bills from them. At the moment, it's now called Electric Ireland. But to us, ESB means we have electricity on site. Now, it's not a given the electricity is up to code. It's not a given you can go in and switch on a kettle or turn on a light. But having electricity in a house historically means that the poles and stuff are already up, and getting the electricity hooked back up again is a lot less expensive when you have those poles already there. So the next thing that I thought was a really, really big plus on a house that's this cheap is the fact that the listing says it's in good dry condition inside. Now, I deal with a lot of listings on a day-to-day basis when I work with houses like this, and I can guarantee you that agents don't say this type of stuff lightly. The majority of listings I see for houses like this, agents tend to kind of talk them down more so than talk them up. So they're not going to be there going, God, it's lovely and dry inside, and you're going to go in and go, it's not that dry. Believe me when I tell you that if an agent says that a house is nice and dry inside, there's a very good chance that it's a lot drier even than we're used to seeing when we go to houses. So the main reason this place is probably dry inside is that roof. If you look at this picture here, you'll see that that galvanized roof on the house actually looks quite new and it looks quite intact. It looks quite solid. The chimneys as well, if you take a closer look now, you'll see that they look quite well plastered. There doesn't look like there's gaps in the mortar. It doesn't look like there's water getting in or anything. This is good stuff. Now, if this roof was redone recently, it means that a bit of care and a bit of money was put into this house to keep it dry. Now, it's not a given that the house is in immaculate condition inside, but it just means that the 10 or 15,000 that you might have to spend on a roof might actually be something you could save, which is absolutely brilliant. Again, not a given that the roof under it is in great condition, but it's still a really good sign and a really great thing to have on your shortlist when you're looking at houses that are this cheap, because a lot of them will have no roofs or they'll have roofs that have never had any work done on them. So this one here is a really, really good sign starting off. So I'm going to stand over to the side now for a minute because we're going to take a look at the inside of the house, and I have a couple of pictures that I want to go through in a little bit more detail with you. Now, like the agent said in the listing, the house is actually quite dry looking inside. If you look at the floors and the walls and stuff like that, it actually doesn't look in terribly bad condition. Now, sure, there's a bit of clutter in it and stuff like that, as you can see from the pictures, but really the floors aren't wet. The walls don't look particularly wet. If this had had buckets of water coming down through it for the last 100 years, that blue paint, for example, would not still be on them walls. Like, this is the kind of stuff that gets damaged. There would be mildew and mold in there. There'd be puddles on the floor. There'd be kind of tide lines up the side of the wall. So this is a really, really good thing. Now, I know you're all looking at that picture of the chimney and going, well, why is that chimney discoloured if the house is so dry inside? And realistically, what probably happened here, which happens in nearly every house like this, happened in mine, happened in most of them that I've seen, is that the old original chimney will eventually start taking in water and it will get damage to it if it's not really, really well maintained. Now, what you can see in this picture, the discoloration on the sides of that chimney up at the very, very top and stuff, that could have happened 40 years ago. It could have been repaired 10 years ago, and the roof and the top of the chimney could be rebuilt, and that could just be in really, really nice condition. But what you're seeing is earth and stones and stained kind of just walls that are kind of drying out over time, and because no one's lighting fires in it, they're not drying out particularly quickly. There's no heating on in the house, so they're not going to dry out like in a month. It's going to take somebody living there. Like when I moved into my place and we had to get one of the chimneys rebuilt from the inglenook up, the inglenook itself, we would whitewash it every year, and every year this brown would come out through it where it was just drying out, and it was taking its own time to dry out. And now after 10 years, 15 years, it's dry and it's lovely and white, but it takes a year or two of fires just being lit in a house to dry it out and to get those walls, which can be earth and stone and lime mortar. It takes time for them to dry out, you know. The next thing I want to show you is this, and this is an overhead view of the property and what the land, I suppose, is that you get with it. Now, when you look at this and the layout of it, you're going to see really quickly why this place is 27,500 as a guide price. The layout of the site's a bit strange, and it's obviously quite close to the property next door. But I want to talk through this with you guys in a kind of a realistic way and look at what you could do if you only had 27,500 or 30,000 to buy a house and you're stuck, because this isn't necessarily going to be a house somebody's going to buy as a luxury. This is one of those houses that is an option for someone who only has maybe 30 or 40,000 to spend. And I want to show you how you could actually make it work. So first of all, when you look at it from overhead, you can see, I'm going to circle it here now, that the little shed that's to the left-hand side of the property isn't actually included in the sale from what I can see from the picture. So the little outbuilding that you can see here looks like it's on the other side of the split when you look at the overhead view. So that's one thing to take into account. So first of all, your cottage is semi-detached. It's not a detached cottage sitting on its own. Now, this isn't a really unusual thing. There's loads of times when we see little cottages in rural Ireland where it's two little houses stuck together and they're in the middle of nowhere. They both have separate gardens, separate front gates. They're very much built as semi-detached cottages, and people live in them perfectly fine. So don't let this put you off. The next thing though that I want to point out to you is the farmyard next door. Now, obviously, the property more than likely belongs to those people and it's getting split up in quite an unusual way. But this is one of those situations where you need to get boots on the ground and you need to actually get a feel for the layout of that property and why certain parts of it are being kept back and certain parts of it are being given. There is a chance that this little piece of the outbuilding at the back, I'm going to circle it right now, there's every chance that that bit that's being kept might maybe open out onto the other yard and then the rest of them open out onto your field. So it could maybe be something like that. You don't know. You need to ask the agent. You need to have a chat to them. But the one thing that I would tell you about buying a house like this that's beside a farmyard or that's semi-detached is you need to get out there in person. You need to have a look at how busy the farmyard is. What kind of agriculture goes on in it? Is it dairy where they're going to be coming in and out like twice a day, once a day? Is it crop farming? I don't even know. I'm not a particularly an expert when it comes to farming terms, but you need to have a look and you need to find out what's going on in the yard beside you. And then you need to sit down and you need to look at it with a really sensible head on your shoulders. So many people will look at a house like this and go, oh, it has a farm beside it. I am no way I'm living there. There's no way I could do anything with that place. And you see, you're missing the bigger picture when you look at it like that. If you live in a town and you live in a semi-detached house or a terrace, you are that close to your neighbours as you would be there. And it's totally fine. People actually pay quite a premium to live in houses like that. So when you come to rural Ireland and you only have maybe €30,000, or you're basically couch surfing, or you're homeless for all intents and purposes at the moment, this might actually be an option for you if you're as close to your neighbour here as you would be in a town, but you also have a half an acre of a garden and your house is only maybe €30,000 all in. Then there are sacrifices that you can make to get that. And I think living quite close to somebody is not the end of the world. Half of the country does it on a daily basis, and definitely it shouldn't be something that means that this house should never sell. It just needs to be something that you need to kind of think outside the box a little bit about. Chat to the agent. And if you get to go out to see the house, there's more than likely a good chance that the farmer is going to be there. And you can have a chat to them and ask them why they're keeping the bits they're keeping and what was their thinking behind splitting it the way they did. And usually you'll find out that there's quite sound reasoning and purpose behind why they did it. And they're not going to sell something that will never sell. It's just a waste of money on their part to do that. So look into it and don't write off these houses the way people are at the moment, because there is every chance that somebody could have a very, very cheap Irish house in this little cottage. So that's it, 27,500 in Carrogary in County Sligo. I really, really hope you guys like this video. These little houses are the kind of properties that we want to see coming on the market. We can't, on the one hand, be given out about farmers holding on to these houses and letting them go to ruin in their farmyards. And then when farmers actually come and make the effort to figure out how to split them away from their farms, then that we're looking at them going, well, I wouldn't live near a farm. Like, you can't have it both ways. These little houses need to be sold. They need to get people into them, or they're going to just be gone forever. So don't always write off these little places that are beside farms. Have a look at them, see could you make them work, and get yourself a really, really cheap house if you can pick one up. It's absolutely brilliant. Win-win. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up. Yay! And I will see you next time with another video about cheap Irish houses. Bye.